Every single person alive today, all 8 billion of us, is descended from a small group of humans who made one decision roughly 70,000 years ago. They left. They walked out of Africa, into the unknown, into desert, into cold, into landscapes no human had ever seen. They had no maps, no guarantee of survival, no way of knowing what was on the other side, and that decision, made by maybe a few hundred people, changed everything. It populated every continent on Earth. It built every civilization that has ever existed. It produced every scientist, every artist, every leader in human history. Why did they go? The first thing to understand is that leaving Africa wasn't a single event. It wasn't one group making one journey. It was a process that unfolded over thousands of years in multiple waves, driven by forces that would feel familiar to anyone alive today. The first force was climate. Africa 70,000 years ago was going through dramatic changes. The Sahara, which today is the largest desert on Earth, was actually green at certain periods, grasslands, lakes, animals, and then it dried out. The rains stopped, the lakes shrank, the animals moved, and the humans followed the animals. That's the simplest explanation for why people left Africa. They weren't adventurers seeking new horizons. They were following food. A herd moves north. You move north. The herd keeps going. You keep going. One generation later, you're somewhere your grandparents never saw. Archaeologists call this range expansion. It happens with every species that's mobile enough to do it. You don't decide to migrate. You just keep following what you need to survive. But climate alone doesn't explain everything, because humans had been in Africa for 200,000 years before this migration happened. The climate had changed many times before. Why did they leave at this particular moment? The answer might be population pressure. Around 70,000 years ago, something almost ended the human species entirely. A supervolcano, Mount Toba in what is now Indonesia, erupted with a force 10,000 times greater than any volcanic eruption in recorded history. The ash cloud blocked sunlight across the entire planet for years. Temperatures dropped, crops failed, animals died. Genetic evidence suggests the human population crashed to somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 individuals. The entire human species reduced to a group smaller than a single modern village. The survivors were the ones who were most flexible, most willing to move, most able to adapt. And when the climate recovered, when the grasslands came back and the herds returned, the survivors expanded aggressively into every available space. Africa filled up, and the overflow went north. The route out of Africa wasn't random. Humans are coastal creatures. We follow shorelines. The first migration out of Africa almost certainly went along the coast of the Arabian Peninsula, which at the time, during a period of lower sea levels, was far more habitable than it is today. From there, some went north into what is now the Middle East. Some went east along the coast of South Asia. Some kept going, all the way to Australia, which was reached by humans at least 65,000 years ago. Think about that. 65,000 years ago, humans crossed open ocean to reach Australia. Not by accident, on purpose. They built boats, or rafts, and they sailed into the unknown Pacific. We have no record of those boats. Wood doesn't survive 65,000 years. But the humans arrived, which means the boats existed. The first ocean crossing in human history happened before agriculture, before writing, before any of what we call civilization. When the first humans arrived in new territories, they didn't find empty land. They found other humans. Neanderthals had been living in Europe and Western Asia for over 200,000 years. Denisovans, a related species we only discovered in the last 15 years, were spread across Asia. There were other archaic human populations in Southeast Asia and possibly elsewhere. These weren't animals. They were intelligent, tool-using, fire-making humans. They had language. They had culture. They had been successfully living in these environments for hundreds of thousands of years. And then the modern humans arrived. What happened next is one of the most debated questions in all of archaeology. Did the modern humans kill the Neanderthals? Did they outcompete them for resources? Did they interbreed with them? The answer, it turns out, is all of the above. We know they interbred because we can measure it. If you're of European or Asian descent, approximately 1 to 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. If you're of Southeast Asian or Pacific Islander descent, you carry Denisovan DNA as well. The people who left Africa didn't replace the people they met. They merged with them. The modern human genome is a record of every encounter, every union, every mixed family that happened during that 70,000-year expansion. You are not purely anything. You are the result of thousands of years of humans meeting each other, surviving together, and making children. But why were the modern humans so successful? Why did Neanderthals, who had survived ice ages and megafauna and every challenge Europe could throw at them for 200,000 years, disappear within a few thousand years of modern humans arriving? The honest answer is we don't fully know, but the leading theory is cognitive. Modern humans had something that Neanderthals may have lacked or had less of: the ability to maintain large social networks. Neanderthals lived in small groups, probably 20 to 30 individuals. They made tools, but the tools were local. The materials came from nearby. The designs didn't change much over thousands of years. Modern humans traded. Archaeologists have found shells from the Mediterranean coast at sites 500 kilometers inland. Obsidian from volcanic islands showing up at mainland campsites. These objects moved through exchange networks, person to person, group to group, across enormous distances. That means modern humans were connected. Information traveled with the goods. A new tool design invented in one place could spread across a continent within a few generations. A better hunting technique. A new way to preserve food. A more efficient shelter design. Neanderthals were isolated. Modern humans were networked. And in the long run, networks beat isolation every time. The last humans to leave Africa arrived in the Americas around 15,000 to 20,000 years ago, walking across a land bridge where the Bering Strait is today, when sea levels were low enough to expose dry land between Asia and North America. Within 1,000 years, they had reached the southern tip of South America, the entire length of 2 continents, 15,000 kilometers, colonized in 1,000 years. They were moving fast because they were following megafauna, mammoths, giant ground sloths, horses, camels, all the large animals that had never encountered human hunters before, animals with no fear of humans, animals that had never learned to run. The hunting was easy, too easy. Within a few thousand years of human arrival in the Americas, most of the megafauna was gone. The same pattern that had played out in Australia, in Europe, in Asia, repeated again in the last untouched wilderness on Earth. So why did they leave Africa? They left because the climate pushed them, because the volcano nearly killed them and the survivors were the most adaptable, because they followed animals across a drying Sahara and never stopped following, because they built boats and crossed oceans because something on the other side was worth the risk. They left because that's what humans do. The same drive that took a small group of Africans to the edge of a continent and then beyond it, across deserts, across oceans, across mountain ranges and ice fields, is the same drive that put humans on the moon, that launched probes beyond the solar system, that keeps asking, what's out there? Your ancestors left because they couldn't not leave. That curiosity, that restlessness, that refusal to accept the horizon as a limit, it's in your DNA, literally. The journey that started in Africa 70,000 years ago never really ended. It's still going.